Rich, the Baker Mayfield question looms over this draft, and as soon as it became clear the Carolina Panthers were not going to take a quarterback last night, it became, when are they going to trade for Baker Mayfield? And from my understanding, they've had some contact with the Cleveland Browns. Nothing is imminent, and if something happens, it doesn't sound like it's going to happen tonight, which also means the Panthers, and this is something I'm told they are considering, could trade back into the second round or maybe back into the third round using a future pick to come in and, rather than trade for Baker, come in and select their quarterback of the future.
I hear the Carolina Panthers are going to make a move for Baker Mayfield. My reaction, if they do, no!
I want to open up this video by giving a huge shout out to each and every one of my followers that showed up to my very first Twitch stream on twitch.tv/TF Microphone. Honestly, I'm going to start streaming twice a week on twitch.tv/TF Microphone. My primary motivation for streaming is it's a way easier way for me to communicate with my closest fans. It was a very intimate group in the stream, so it was way easier to communicate and chat with each and every one of you guys. I wanted to find an additional means of doing that. So a huge shout out to everyone that showed up, and if you're not followed already, follow me on twitch.tv/TF Microphone. I'm going to be streaming once a week, and we're going to be talking football or just reacting to highlights or podcast clips. In addition to that, we're giving away $500 to a subscriber that turns on our notifications on this channel. And now that we get all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Guys, I was so confident that Baker Mayfield was going to get traded today that I even tweeted out on my Twitter page that if Baker Mayfield gets traded during the NFL draft, I'll give away a cash prize to a follower that retweeted that tweet. Ultimately, yes, I know there's an additional day. I'm making this on day 2 of the NFL draft, but I was so shocked when I found out that Baker Mayfield was not traded. Now, there's a lot of backstory to this because earlier on in the day, we actually found out that the Carolina Panthers and the Cleveland Browns were in heated trade discussions and were making progress towards a Baker Mayfield trade. Now, there's another team that is apparently in on Baker Mayfield other than the Carolina Panthers. I'm guessing it's going to be, well, we're going to get to that in just a sec, but it was a trade that seemed to be written out, good to go. The only caveat was the Cleveland Browns were going to eat some of his salary, and then he would get sent to the Carolina Panthers to Robbie Anderson's dismay. Now, if you watch the NFL draft, you'd know that Baker Mayfield not only didn't get traded, but the Carolina Panthers had an alternative in mind. They were not going to go into this year's NFL season with just Sam Darnold. That's despite Ben McAdoo saying that
Sam is our starting quarterback. That wasn't something I should have said, but
that's despite Sam Darnold coming out and saying that he feels like he is a dominant QB still on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast. Shout out to Taylor Lewan and Will Compton.
It truly is, and this is kind of where you're not going to believe what I say, but just bear with me.
I'll be ready.
Yeah. It truly is like whatever happens, happens. Because that's, at the end of the day, like, it's out of my control.
Yeah.
And I know that. And so I have enough security in myself to where I can be like, I know I'm a good quarterback. I know I can be a good quarterback in this league. I've proved it. And I know there's a team, if, you know, something happens, that would want me.
Ultimately, the Carolina Panthers took a much simpler route. Instead of taking a flyer on yet another hand-me-down QB, despite him being the #1 overall pick in the 2018 NFL draft and having him in the same QB room as the #3 overall pick in the 2018 NFL draft, they decided, hey, look, there's a lot of quarterbacks that are sliding down this year's NFL draft. Not a single quarterback was selected in the second round. In the third round, the Atlanta Falcons had the opportunity to take their hometown guy, Malik Willis, and instead decided to select Desmond Ridder, which, honestly, I can't really blame him. But still, it must be very heartbreaking if you're Malik Willis to have your hometown team pass up on you like that. Now, as time went on, we saw Malik Willis go to the Tennessee Titans, which I absolutely love that situation for him because, of course, you have Ryan Tannehill currently at the quarterback position. And then, in the meantime, Malik Willis does need a little bit of polish. That Tennessee Titans offense might be undergoing a mini rebuild in the sense that they traded A.J. Brown so they could select Treylon Burks, and they already drafted their QB of the future, Malik Willis, who was a first-round talent that went in the third round. Tremendous value for the Tennessee Titans, but ultimately, the Carolina Panthers decided, okay, we're not going to go with Baker Mayfield. Apparently what happened is between the Carolina Panthers and the Cleveland Browns, there was a serious impasse. The impasse was so great that the Carolina Panthers said, screw you to Baker Mayfield. We're going to go ahead and send a 4th round pick and a 2023 3rd round pick to the New England Patriots so we could draft Matt Corral out of Mississippi. But this makes a lot of sense. When you compare Baker Mayfield's situation, which you know what you're getting in Baker Mayfield. Of course, he had a down year this year. The previous year, he had a better year. And the previous year to that, when Freddie Kitchens was his head coach, he had a horrific year. When you compare him to Matt Corral, a player that isn't going to be paid that much this year to potentially compete with Sam Darnold during training camp, then it's kind of a no-brainer. You could either bring in Baker Mayfield, who would be paid $18.858 million this year under the 5th year option, which by the way is the same amount that Sam Darnold is going to be due because of course he was just drafted 2 picks after Baker Mayfield. Or you could draft Matt Corral, who isn't going to get paid even a fraction of that amount to be a 3rd round draft pick. And for all you know, one of these QBs, I just have a feeling that one of these QBs is going to blossom into a Pro Bowl QB. I feel like with all the quarterbacks that we've been talking about, of course, this is just a hunch. It's not necessarily based off of any analysis that I made. It's just between Desmond Ridder and Matt Corral and Malik Willis and maybe Sam Howell, I feel like one of those quarterbacks could blossom into something special. It's just the fact that this quarterback class doesn't even come close to next year's quarterback class, and ultimately as a result of that, a lot of teams were wary about drafting a QB even in the 2nd round of the NFL draft. Now, what does this mean for Baker Mayfield? Well, with all due respect, Robbie Anderson must be having a little grin backstage over there with the Carolina Panthers, him and Steve Smith, but it seems like this is the absolute worst thing that could have happened to Baker Mayfield. The only team that could trade for him at this point that makes any sense whatsoever is the Seattle Seahawks. And at this point, if you're the Cleveland Browns, what are you going to get in return for Baker Mayfield? I don't think a team's going to part with a 3rd round pick next year. And I don't know, how do you feel about trading the number 1 overall pick in the 2018 NFL draft for a 4th round pick to the Seattle Seahawks? And even if so, would the Seattle Seahawks even want to take a flyer on Baker Mayfield when they already are rolling the dice with Drew Lock? Not to say that Drew Lock inspires confidence at all whatsoever, but what are the odds that the Seahawks even pursue Baker Mayfield? The Carolina Panthers were his best chance. And ultimately, the trade talks fell through between the Carolina Panthers and the Cleveland Browns. Now, this really sucks for Baker Mayfield, don't get me wrong, but I'm placing a large portion of the blame on the Cleveland Browns. I mean, if you were going to trade for Deshaun Watson, don't you think you should have pumped the brakes on that a little bit? Maybe keep it under wraps, trade Baker Mayfield first, try to get the best value that you possibly could have, and then pursue Deshaun Watson? Shouldn't you be in cahoots with Deshaun Watson to try to make that work out? Because at the end of the day, if you get a 2nd or a 3rd round pick for Baker Mayfield or a higher draft pick for Baker Mayfield, that'll only benefit Deshaun Watson in the future. I think this is mismanagement by the Cleveland Browns because they did everything they possibly could to lower Baker Mayfield's value as much as they possibly could. And ultimately, I don't know what's going to happen for Baker Mayfield. Typically, I'd be able to speculate, but if the Seattle Seahawks don't trade for him, the only other option I could see in this scenario is Baker Mayfield gets released. There's no way they go into the regular season with Baker Mayfield backing up Deshaun Watson. There's no way Baker Mayfield would deal with that. You know how outspoken he is. This is a guy that posted onto Instagram a farewell to Cleveland the moment they were even pursuing Deshaun Watson. This is a horrific situation for Baker Mayfield, which I understand in his head he was thinking, yeah, I'm going to be the knight in shining armor. I'm going to play through this injury. I know I don't look as good, but maybe the Cleveland Browns fan base would understand that I am the greatest quarterback that they had in the past 2 decades, and I'm currently dealing with an injury. After me taking them to the furthest that they've gone over the past 2 decades, maybe they'll have some empathy towards the fact that I have an injury and the fact that I'm trying to fight through this injury to perform as best as I can, and they'll understand that. And and ultimately, that bit him in the ass. Odell Beckham Jr.'s dad coming out and saying that Baker Mayfield sabotaged my son and isn't throwing him the football whenever he's wide open bit Baker Mayfield in the ass. And the fact that the Carolina Panthers and the Cleveland Browns weren't able to execute a trade today also really bit Baker Mayfield in the ass. I don't know what's next for him. I don't know if he's going to get cut and get the Cam Newton treatment of last year. If that's the case, then I feel tremendous empathy. This man's only been in the NFL for 4 years, and without a doubt, he's at the very minimum a backup QB in this league. And you can make an argument that he could start for a decent amount of teams in this league. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.